The sun of New Anchorage was dying, and nobody was coming to save them. Governor Elena Vasquez stood at the observation deck of the colony's main hub, watching the star flicker with unnatural violence. Solar flares erupted from its surface like angry whips, each one larger than the last. The science team had confirmed it 3 hours ago. A cascade failure in the star's magnetic field. In 48 hours, maybe less, a flare large enough to strip the atmosphere would hit the planet. 200,000 people lived on New Anchorage. Miners, farmers, scientists, children. They had built this world from nothing over 15 years. Now it would all burn. Elena had sent the distress signal to Earth, to the colonial fleet, to anyone who would listen. The responses came back one by one, each more devastating than the last. The nearest human ship was 6 days away. The colonial transport fleet was scattered across 3 systems dealing with the Krell border situation. Private vessels didn't have the capacity? The math was simple and cruel. They could evacuate maybe 20,000 people. The rest would die. She watched parents holding their children in the plaza below. They knew, everyone knew. Some were crying, others sat in quiet acceptance. A few still packed bags, as if routine could save them from the sun's fury. "Governor, we have something on long-range sensors," her communications officer called out. "Multiple ships? Not human." Elena's heart jumped. "Who?" transponders say Ysera. 23 vessels approaching at maximum speed. The Ysera. Elena had met one once, at a trade conference. An insectoid species with crystalline eyes and mandibles that clicked when they spoke. They were peaceful, quiet, barely noticed by the larger galactic powers. They had only 3 worlds to their name, a small merchant fleet, and virtually no military. What are they doing here? Elena asked. "They're responding to our distress signal, Governor. They say they're here to evacuate our people." Elena felt something break inside her chest. Not despair this time. Something else. How many people can they carry? The communications officer worked his console, then looked up with wide eyes. All of them. They've emptied their cargo holds, passenger compartments, even crew quarters. They can take everyone. The Ysera ships arrived like miracles wrapped in metal. They weren't beautiful vessels. They were industrial haulers, merchant ships, short-range transports. But to the people of New Anchorage, they looked like salvation. The evacuation began immediately. The Ysera didn't waste time with formalities or negotiations. They simply opened their cargo bays and started loading people. Human families climbed into spaces that smelled of alien chemicals and strange metals. The Ysera crew worked without stopping, their 6-limbed bodies moving with mechanical efficiency. Elena met the fleet mother on the landing pad. The Ysera leader was old, her carapace scarred and dull with age. She stood nearly 8 feet tall, her 4 legs planted firmly on the ground. "Why are you doing this?" Elena asked. "You don't owe us anything? You're risking your ships, your people?" The fleet mother's mandibles clicked in what the translator rendered as contemplation. "We heard your call?" We could answer. "Is more reason needed? The radiation levels are climbing? Your ships aren't shielded for this. You'll lose crew members." "Maybe vessels, yes," the fleet mother said simply. "We know. We came anyway." The sun flickered again, brighter this time. Alarms wailed across the colony. The cascade was accelerating. "We need to move faster," Elena said. They did. The Ysera pushed their ships beyond safe limits. They loaded people until their vessels groaned under the weight. Elena watched a Ysera crew member collapse from radiation exposure while guiding human children aboard. Other crew members simply picked up their fallen comrade and continued working 30 hours into the evacuation. The first ship died. The merchant vessel Singing Stone took a direct hit from a solar flare while loading its final passengers. Its shields failed. Radiation cooked through the hull. 800 Ysera crew members died in seconds. 2,000 humans they had already loaded died with them. The fleet mother didn't order a retreat. She ordered the remaining ships to work faster. Elena wanted to scream at her to stop, to save her own people, but the words wouldn't come. The Asira were dying for humans they had never met. Dying so that children on a distant colony could see another sunrise. By hour 40, they had lost 3 more ships. The radiation was so intense now that human skin burned if exposed for more than a few minutes. The Asira worked in shifts, each crew member taking their turn in the deadly environment. Until they collapsed, Elena supervised the loading of the final transport. The last 500 colonists, mostly children. The youngest ones didn't understand what was happening. The older ones were quiet, watching the Asira with something like awe. A young Asira, barely more than a juvenile by their standards, guided a human girl up the ramp. The girl was crying. The Asira leaned down, mandibles clicking softly, and placed one of its forelimbs on her shoulder. Elena didn't need a translator to understand the gesture. "You are safe now." The fleet mother stood beside Elena as the last ship prepared to launch. The old alien's carapace was cracked from radiation exposure. Fluids leaked from the joints. She was dying, Elena realized. They all were. The ones who survived this would carry the scars forever. Why? Elena asked again, her voice breaking. "Why would you sacrifice so much for us?" The fleet mother's crystalline eyes reflected the dying sun. "Because when we heard your people crying for help, we had ships that could answer. What else could we do?" Elena felt tears streaming down her face. "We can never repay this. There is no price that could equal what you've done." "We do not seek payment," the fleet mother said. "Go, take your people to safety. Build new homes. Live good lives? That is enough." Elena grabbed the alien's forelimb with both hands. The carapace was hot to the touch, burning from radiation. She didn't let go. "Humanity will remember this," Elena said, her voice hard as iron despite the tears. "We owe you a debt that has no price. I don't care if it takes 100 years. I don't care if it costs everything we have. If your people ever need us, we will come. Do you understand me? We will come, and nothing in this galaxy will stop us." The fleet mother's mandibles clicked in what might have been amusement. "You honor us with your words, Elena Vasquez? Now go. Your son is angry." Elena boarded the last ship. As it lifted off, she watched new anchorage fall away below. The colony they had built was already burning. The star erupted with final violence, and the world that had been her home vanished in white fire, but her people lived. All of them. Because a species they barely knew had crossed the void to save them, the Asira lost 4 ships and 3,000 crew members that day. They never asked for thanks. They never sent a bill. They simply returned to their 3 quiet worlds and went back to their lives. They thought it was over. They didn't understand humans yet. Humans remember. Humans count every debt. And humans always pay what they owe. The galaxy would learn this lesson. It would learn it in fire, and blood and screaming metal, but that would come later. For now, 200,000 humans flew toward safety in alien ships, and every single one of them whispered the same promise into the dark: "We will not forget." 47 years after New Anchorage burned, the Asira were dying. The Galactic Security Council chamber was a massive dome of crystalline light, floating in neutral space between the territories of a dozen species. Representatives from across the sector gathered here to debate, negotiate, and pretend they cared about justice. Ambassador Marcus Chun stood at the human podium, looking up at the council members arrayed in their elevated seats. Zentari with their blue skin and contemptuous expressions. Meridians, massive and armored, built for war. Sethians, reptilian and cold-blooded in every sense. And dozens of others, all watching with varying degrees of interest. At the center podium stood the Asira representative. Her name was Clicking Song, and she was begging. "2 of our worlds have fallen," she said, her translator rendering her clicking speech into flat, emotionless words. "The Krell Dominion invaded without warning. They claim we violated their border. This is a lie. We have proof. We have recordings. We have—" "The Council has reviewed your evidence," the Zentari ambassador interrupted, his voice dripping with boredom. "The matter is not clear-cut. Perhaps there was a misunderstanding. Perhaps your ships did cross into Krell space. These things happen in border regions. Marcus watched Clicking Song's carapace darken with distress. The Asira had submitted their case 3 times now. Each time, the council found new reasons to delay, to question, to doubt. "We have only one world remaining," Clicking Song said. "The Krell fleet surrounds our homeworld now. They will attack within days. We ask the council to demand their withdrawal. We ask for sanctions. We ask for anything, please." The Meridian representative shifted his massive bulk. "The Asira are asking us to risk war with the Krell Dominion over a border dispute. The Krell have 1,000,000 ships. They control 300 systems. With respect, why would we threaten that power over 3 small worlds?" Marcus felt his jaw clench. His grandmother had been on New Anchorage. She had been 8 years old when the Ithsira came. She was 70 now, and she still cried when she told the story. "Because it's the right thing to do," Marcus said. The Zentari ambassador laughed. "The right thing? Ambassador Shun, we understand humans have sentimental attachments to the Asira, but the council must think practically. The reality is that the Asira homeworlds sit on valuable hyperlane nexuses. The Krell need those lanes for trade. Perhaps it is better for everyone if the Asira simply relocate." "Relocate," Marcus repeated slowly. "You mean abandon their homeworld. The world where their species evolved. Where their history lives. Where their dead are buried." "Yes," the Zentari said simply. "It is unfortunate, but this is realpolitik, Ambassador. The galaxy does not run on sentiment." Marcus looked at Clicking Song. The Asira's forelegs were trembling. She was old enough to remember New Anchorage. She had been part of the rescue fleet. She had carried human children in her own limbs. "I would like to call for a vote," Marcus said. "A resolution demanding immediate Krell withdrawal from YTH Azira space, backed by economic sanctions and the threat of military intervention." The Zentari ambassador sighed. "Very well, let us vote and be done with this." The vote took less than 5 minutes. 43 members of the Galactic Security Council, humans, voted yes. The Asira voted yes. 41 members either voted no or abstained. The resolution failed. Clicking Song made a sound that the translator couldn't process. It came out as static. Marcus knew what it was. It was the sound of hope dying. "The council has spoken," the Zentari ambassador said. "The matter is closed." "Perhaps the Asira and Krell can negotiate a peaceful settlement." Marcus stood slowly. He looked around the chamber at the assembled representatives of galactic civilization. They were already turning to other matters. The Asira were too weak to matter. Too poor to be worth saving. Just another small species crushed under the wheel of progress. "I would like to make a statement," Marcus said. The Zentari ambassador waved a hand dismissively. "The council has moved on, Ambassador Chun." "You'll want to hear this," Marcus said. His voice was quiet, too quiet. The kind of quiet that made smart people nervous. The chamber fell silent. Marcus pulled out a data tablet and began reading. 47 years ago, the Asira saved 200,000 human lives on New Anchorage. They lost 4 ships and 3,000 crew members doing it. They never asked for payment. They never asked for thanks. They just did it because it was right. "That is a touching story," the Meridian said. "But it does not change the current situation." "I'm not finished," Marcus said. On that day, Governor Elena Vasquez made a promise. She promised that humanity would remember, that we would repay the debt. That if the Asira ever needed us, we would come. "Humans and their promises," the Sethian representative hissed. "Very romantic, very foolish," Marcus set down the tablet. "The Krell Dominion has 72 hours to withdraw from all Asira territory. After that, humanity will consider ourselves at war." The chamber erupted in shocked chatter. "You can't be serious," the Zentari ambassador said. "You would go to war over this? War with the Krell Dominion?" "Yes," Marcus said simply. "You'll be destroyed," the Meridian said. "The Krell will crush you. Your fleet is barely a tenth the size of theirs." "Maybe," Marcus said. "But we'll make them remember us." The Zentari ambassador leaned forward. "Ambassador Chun, be reasonable. The YTH Azira are not worth this." "You are letting emotion cloud your judgment," Marcus smiled. It was not a pleasant smile. And since this council has declined to act, humanity considers every member nation complicit in the Krell aggression. Choose your sides carefully. The galaxy is about to change. Is that a threat? The Sethian asked. It's a warning, Marcus said. 72 hours. Tell the Krell. He walked out of the chamber. Clicking Song followed him into the corridor outside. Her carapace was still dark with distress. Your people cannot do this, she said. You will be destroyed. We are not worth— Stop, Marcus said. He turned to face her. My grandmother was 8 years old when your people saved her life. She's 70 now. Every year on the anniversary of the evacuation, she lights a candle for the 3,000 Ithsira who died. Every year she tells me the same thing. She says, Marcus, we owe them everything, everything. Clicking Song's crystalline eyes reflected the corridor lights. But War, your people will die. Yes, Marcus said. But we're humans, we don't forget a favor. And we will never ever let a friend stand alone. He left her there and returned to his ship. Within the hour, he transmitted his report to Earth. The human colonial government read it. They remembered New Anchorage. They remembered the debt. The vote in Parliament took 30 minutes. The resolution passed unanimously. Humanity was going to war. In the Galactic Council chamber. The other ambassadors laughed. Humanity was foolish. Humanity was sentimental. Humanity was about to learn a hard lesson. About power in the galaxy. They were right about one thing. Someone was about to learn a lesson, but it wasn't humanity. In secret. Shipyards across human space. Vessels that had been hidden for 47 years began to power up. Weapon systems that violated every galactic convention came online. Soldiers who had trained their entire lives for this moment received their orders. The Krell Dominion had 72 hours. They wouldn't use them wisely, and the galaxy would never be the same. The Krell Dominion did not withdraw. They issued a statement calling humanity's ultimatum amusing and irrelevant. They positioned more ships around the Ithsira homeworld. They prepared for a final assault. They were confident. Why wouldn't they be? They had 1 million ships. They controlled 300 systems. They were the dominant military power in the sector. Humanity had 70,000 ships, most of them explorers and cargo haulers. The Krell had fought wars for centuries. Humans had only fought border skirmishes and pirates. The math seemed clear. The math was wrong. At our 73. Humanity stopped talking. In 40 different Krell systems. Human fleets emerged from hyperspace simultaneously. Not the exploration vessels the galaxy knew. Not the defensive frigates that patrolled human borders. These were warships. New warships. Ships the galaxy had never seen before. The Krell Military Command received reports from all 40 systems at once. Confusion turned to concern. Concern turned to fear. Fear turned to panic. What are those? A Krell admiral asked, staring at his tactical display. His sensor officer's hands shook as he worked his console. I don't know, sir. They're human vessels, but the designs don't match anything in our database. And the energy readings are impossible. Nothing that size should generate that much power. On the bridge of the human dreadnought Remembrance, Fleet Admiral Sarah Okonkwo watched her tactical display with cold satisfaction. 40 fleets. 1,600 ships total. Each one built in secret over the past 47 years. Each one designed for a single purpose. To repay a debt. All ships, she said calmly. Execute Operation Singing Stone. Named after the first Ithsira. Vessel lost at New Anchorage. The Krell learned what human vengeance looked like. In the Krell system of Vorthal. Home to a massive military shipyard, the human fleet didn't bother with traditional weapons. They fired relativistic kinetic missiles. Chunks of tungsten accelerated to 90% light speed. At that velocity, they couldn't be intercepted. They couldn't be dodged. They hit with the force of nuclear weapons. The shipyard, which had been building Krell warships for 200 years, ceased to exist in 17 seconds. In the Krell industrial system of Morith, human ships deployed something new. Nanoweapon swarms. Billions of microscopic machines that spread through space like a gray cloud. When they touched Krell vessels, they didn't explode. They simply began taking the ships apart, molecule by molecule. The Krell crews could only watch as their vessels dissolved around them. In the Krell command system of Dralax, home to their sector fleet headquarters, humanity unveiled their hunter-killer drones, unmanned ships controlled by artificial intelligence. They didn't need food. They didn't need sleep. They didn't need courage or morale. They simply hunted. When Krell ships ran, the drones followed. When Krell ships fought, the drones adapted. When Krell ships surrendered, the drones didn't care. Every human vessel broadcast the same message on all frequencies. The words were in Krell language, so there could be no misunderstanding. We do not forget. We do not forgive. The Asira will be free, or the Krell will cease to exist. Choose. The Galactic Security Council convened an emergency session. The ambassadors who had laughed at humanity 72 hours ago were not laughing now. "This is madness," the Zentari ambassador shouted. "Humanity must cease hostilities immediately. This violates every convention of warfare. Those weapons are banned. Those tactics are prohibited. This is not how civilized species conduct war." Ambassador Marcus Chun sat at his podium, watching the chaos with emotionless eyes. "You're right," he said. "This is not how civilized species conduct war. But you taught us that civilization doesn't matter. You taught us that power is all that counts. You taught us that small species can be destroyed with impunity while the Council watches. So we learned. And now we're teaching you." "You're monsters," the Sethian representative hissed. "No," Marcus said. "We're humans. We asked for your help. We asked you to do the right thing. You chose to do nothing. You don't get to complain about what happens next." The Meridian ambassador slammed his massive fist on his podium. "The Council demands that humanity cease all hostile actions against the Krell Dominion immediately." "Denied," Marcus said simply. "You can't deny a Council order." "I just did." "The Galactic Security Council has proven itself irrelevant. We're not asking for permission anymore." Reports continued flooding in from the war zone. The Krell were losing systems by the hour. Their vaunted million-ship fleet was scattered across their territory, unable to coordinate a response. Human ships moved with impossible precision, striking simultaneously across hundreds of light-years. Their communication systems seemed to operate in real time, ignoring the speed of light restrictions that limited everyone else. Quantum entanglement. The Krell scientists realized too late. Humanity had weaponized quantum physics to create instantaneous coordination across their entire fleet. Within 2 weeks, the Krell lost 200 systems. Not occupied. Not conquered, destroyed. Human forces obliterated every military installation, every shipyard, every weapons factory. Then they moved on. They didn't stay to hold territory. They simply removed the Krell's ability to wage war, and continued to the next target. The Krell High Command begged for a ceasefire. They offered concessions. They offered reparations. They offered to withdraw from Ithsira space. Humanity's response came from Admiral Okonkwo herself, broadcast across every channel in the galaxy. "Too late. You had 72 hours. You chose war. Now you'll learn what human war looks like." The other Council species began to panic. If humanity could do this to the Krell, what could they do to anyone else? The Zentari started moving fleets to their borders with human space. For defensive purposes only, they claimed. The Meridians began protecting trade interests. Near the conflict zone, the Sethians quietly reinforced their military outposts. Humanity noticed. Marcus Chun stood before the Galactic Council once more. His expression was carved from stone. "I want to be very clear," he said. "We are at war with the Krell Dominion. Only the Krell Dominion. Any species that interferes will be considered a co-belligerent. Any species that provides aid to the Krell will be considered a co-belligerent. Any species that moves military forces near our area of operations will be considered a co-belligerent." "You can't dictate terms to the entire galaxy," the Zentari ambassador said. Watch me, Marcus replied. Stand down your fleets, stay out of our way, or join the Krell in learning what humanity does to its enemies. The Meridian ambassador's voice boomed. You're bluffing? You're already stretched thin fighting the Krell. You can't possibly take on another major power. Marcus smiled. It was a terrible smile. Want to test that theory? The Meridian hierarchy decided to test it. They sent a fleet of 600 ships to protect Meridian trade interests in a Krell border system. It was a show of force, meant to remind humanity that they couldn't fight everyone. The human response was immediate. A single human fleet, 30 ships, engaged the Meridian force. The battle lasted 17 minutes. All 600 Meridian vessels were destroyed. The 30 human ships didn't take a single casualty. Humanity broadcast the entire battle to every world in the galaxy. Not as propaganda. As a warning, the message was simple. We told you to choose sides carefully. The Meridians withdrew all their fleets to their core systems. The Zentari did the same. The Sethians recalled their military to their homeworlds. Every minor species that had been thinking about getting involved suddenly found reasons to stay neutral. The Krell Dominion, watching their empire burn, finally understood. They weren't fighting a war. They were being executed on the Bridge of the Remembrance. Admiral Okonkwo received a communication from the Krell High Command. They were begging now, offering unconditional surrender. Offering anything? She looked at the message for a long time. Then she thought about New Anchorage, about 3,000 Nisira who died saving strangers, about the debt humanity had promised to repay. Send them our terms, she said. Unconditional surrender. Complete military disarmament. Krell forces will be dismantled under human supervision. They have 12 hours to accept, and if they refuse? Her first officer asked. Admiral Okonkwo's eyes were hard as diamond. Then we glass their homeworld and move on to the next. The Krell accepted. The war lasted 37 days. The Krell Dominion, which had ruled 300 systems for 4 centuries, ceased to exist as a military power. Their shipyards were rubble. Their fleets were debris. Their weapons factories were melted slag. Humanity had systematically dismantled every aspect of Krell military infrastructure with surgical precision and overwhelming force, but the galaxy learned something worse than humanity's military capability. They learned humanity's memory in the Zentari Collective. Ambassador Tyvesh sat in his office watching reports from the former Krell space. The systematic destruction, the absolute efficiency, the cold, calculated vengeance. He had voted to abstain when the Athira begged for help. It had seemed like the smart, political choice. Now his hands shook as he drafted a message to his government. We may have made a terrible mistake, he wrote the Meridian. Hierarchy held an emergency session of their war council. General Krathax, who had ordered the fleet to the Krell border system, was no longer part of the council. He had been removed from command the day after humanity destroyed his fleet in 17 minutes. How did they do it? One general asked. 600 ships, gone, against 30 human vessels. The military analysts had watched the battle recordings 100 times. The human ships moved as one entity, perfectly coordinated. Their weapons fired in precise sequences, each shot calculated to overwhelm Meridian shields at their weakest points. The AI-controlled drones had predicted every Meridian maneuver before it happened, adapting faster than organic crews could think. They've been preparing for this for decades, one analyst said quietly. While we watched and dismissed them as mid-tier explorers, they were building a war machine specifically designed to fight species like us. Everything they deployed is optimized to counter conventional military doctrine. What do we do? Another general asked. Nothing, the first general said. We do absolutely nothing. We stay in our territory. We make no aggressive moves. We pray they remember we withdrew when they warned us. The Sethian Commonwealth, usually cold and calculating, was in full panic. Their intelligence services had been trying to gather information on human military capability for years. They had spies, sensors, surveillance networks. All of it had missed the secret shipyards, the weapon development programs, the decades of preparation. How did we not see this coming? The Sethian intelligence director hissed. His subordinate's voice was barely a whisper. Because we thought they were like us. We thought they calculated cost versus benefit. We thought they were rational. And they're not? No, Director. They're worse. They're rational right up until someone hurts something they care about. Then they become something else entirely. Across the galaxy, species that had ignored the Asira's pleas were suddenly very interested in diplomatic relations with humanity. Gift ships arrived at human stations. Trade delegations requested meetings. Old border disputes were suddenly resolved in humanity's favor. The message was clear. Nobody wanted to be humanity's enemy. At the Asira homeworld, Clicking Song stood in the ruins of her city and watched human ships in orbit. Not warships now? Engineering vessels? Construction drones? Supply haulers. They were rebuilding what the Krell had destroyed. A human engineer approached her. His name was David, and his grandmother had been on New Anchorage. We're starting with the water treatment facilities, he said. Then power generation. Then housing. We'll have your people back in their homes within 6 months. Why? Clicking Song asked. You've already saved us? You've already repaid your debt? David looked at her with something like confusion. Ma'am, the debt can never be fully repaid. Your people gave us lives. We're just giving you homes. It's not enough? It'll never be enough. Clicking Song's carapace darkened with emotion. Your people terrify the galaxy now. They see you as monsters. I know, David said. But you don't, that's what matters. Across the former Krell space, humanity implemented its occupation plan. It was not gentle. Krell military personnel were processed through war crimes tribunals. Those who had been involved in the Asira invasion were imprisoned. Those who had given the orders were executed. The Krell civilian population was left alone, but their government was dismantled. Humanity installed provisional administrators. Every Krell system was placed under protective supervision. It would be generations before the Krell were allowed to have a military again. The galaxy watched this with growing horror. This was not occupation. This was domination. The Galactic Security Council tried to convene to discuss the human problem. Only half the members showed up. The rest sent apologies. They had urgent business elsewhere. Business that was definitely not related to being afraid of humanity. Ambassador Marcus Chun attended. He sat at his podium and listened to the various ambassadors express their concerns about human military power, about the violations of galactic law, about the precedent being set. Finally, the Zentari ambassador asked the question everyone was thinking. What do you want, Ambassador Chun? What is humanity's goal here? Marcus stood slowly. He was tired. 37 days of war had aged him, but his eyes were still hard. We want you to remember, he said simply. 47 years ago, the Asira asked you for help. You said no. They asked for justice. You said it wasn't practical. They asked you to do the right thing. You said it wasn't profitable. He looked around the chamber at the assembled species. So humanity did it instead. And yes, we violated your laws. We used banned weapons. We fought total war. We terrified you. Good, you should be terrified. Because the next time a small species comes to this council begging for help, you're going to remember what happened when you said no. So this was a lesson? The Sethian asked. You destroyed the Krell to teach the galaxy a lesson? No, Marcus said. We destroyed the Krell because they attacked our friends and you did nothing to stop it. The lesson is just a bonus. The Meridian ambassador shifted uncomfortably. What happens now? Will humanity withdraw? Will you allow the galaxy to return to normal? Marcus laughed. It was a bitter sound. Normal? There is no normal anymore. The Galactic Security Council has proven itself incapable of protecting the weak. So humanity is establishing a new order. He pulled out a document and transmitted it to every podium in the chamber. The Concord of Free Worlds, he said. A new alliance with one simple rule. Collective defense is mandatory. Every member species is obligated to defend every other member species. No more abstaining. No more calculating whether someone is worth saving. If one member is attacked, all members respond. And if we refuse to join? The Zentari asked. Then you don't join, Marcus said. But the Asira are founding members, along with humanity, and a dozen other species who watched what we did for our friends and decided they'd rather be on our side. The implications sank in slowly. Any species that attacked a Concord member would face humanity's military. Any species that stood by while a Concord member was attacked would face humanity's judgment. This is tyranny, the Sethian hissed. You're forcing your will on the entire galaxy. Marcus met the Sethian's eyes. No, we're offering you a choice. Join us in building a galaxy where species help each other. Or stand outside and hope you never need help yourselves? Because if you do need help, and you're not part of the Concord, we'll remember that you stood aside when others needed you. You're blackmailing us, the Zentari said. No, Marcus said. We're giving you the same choice you gave the YTH-0. You can help or you can watch. Choose wisely. Over the next 3 months, 40 species joined the Concord of Free Worlds. Some did it because they believed in the cause. Some did it because they feared humanity. Most did it for both reasons. The Galactic Security Council officially dissolved itself 6 months after the war ended. There was no point in continuing. The Concord had replaced it. Humanity didn't celebrate their victory. They simply continued their work. Rebuilding Asira worlds, processing Krell war criminals, establishing the new order. Admiral Okonkwo retired after the war. In her final speech to her fleet, she said something that would be repeated in human military academies for generations. We are the memory of humanity. We remember every kindness. We remember every betrayal. We repay our debts, all of them, and we ensure that the galaxy learns this lesson well. Help is never wasted. Kindness is never forgotten. And neither is indifference. The galaxy had learned humanity doesn't forget a favor, and the price for ignoring that fact was burned into the remains of the Krell Dominion. 5 years after the war, the galaxy looked different. The Asira homeworld was thriving again. The cities had been rebuilt, better than before. Human engineers had worked alongside Asira architects to create something new, not human. Not purely Asira, something that honored both species. In the central plaza of the capital city, there stood a monument. 3 towers of crystal, each one representing a Asira world. At the base, the names of the 3,000 Asira who had died at New Anchorage were carved in both human and Asira script. And above those names, in letters that could be read from orbit, a simple phrase in both languages, "We did not forget." Fleet Mother Clicking Song stood before the monument, old now and moving slowly. Beside her stood Ambassador Marcus Chun, also aged by the years and the war. Your people changed everything, Clicking Song said. The galaxy fears you now. Yes, Marcus said, they do. Does that bother you? Marcus was quiet for a long moment. My grandmother died last year. She was 95. On her deathbed, she asked me if we had kept our promise. If we had saved your people, I told her yes. She smiled and said, Good, that's what humans do. We keep our promises. He looked up at the monument, at the names of the dead. The galaxy should fear us, he said, not because we're cruel, but because we're consistent. We do what we say we'll do, we keep our word. In a galaxy full of species that calculate every action based on profit and loss, that makes us dangerous. Clicking Song's mandibles clicked in what might have been agreement. The Concord grows larger every month. 60 species now, soon it will be 100. Yes, Marcus said, because they've learned the lesson. Help each other or face the consequences alone, and the Krell, rebuilding. Under supervision. In another generation, maybe 2, they'll be allowed to govern themselves again. Their children are already learning the new history, learning about New Anchorage, learning why they lost their empire. Clicking Song turned to face him. Was it worth it? The lives lost? The destruction? The fear you've created? Marcus met her eyes. Your people are alive, your worlds are free. Your children have a future. Was it worth it to you? Yes, she said quietly. But we paid in fear, your people paid in blood. We've always known the price of keeping our word, Marcus said. 47 years ago, your people paid it too. You knew the radiation would kill your crew, you came anyway. How is what we did different? We saved lives, you took them. We saved your species, Marcus said. The Krell would have wiped you out. Every last Ysera would be dead. We stopped that. Yes, we killed to do it. Yes, we terrified the galaxy. But you're alive. That's what matters. Across the galaxy, the concord of free worlds was reshaping civilization. The old power structures were collapsing. Species that had dominated through military strength now found themselves surrounded by allies who would defend each other. Wars became difficult to start. Aggression became costly. The Meridian hierarchy had joined the Concord after 3 years of careful consideration. They weren't happy about it. But they recognized reality. Being outside the Concord meant being alone. Being alone meant being vulnerable. Being vulnerable meant remembering those 17 minutes when humanity had destroyed 600 ships without breaking a sweat. The Zentari Collective had been the last major power to join. They had held out for 4 years, convinced they could maintain their independence. Then a border skirmish with a minor species had escalated. The minor species called for Concord assistance. The Zentari suddenly found themselves facing not just one enemy, but 60 allied species with humanity's military backing them. The skirmish ended in 6 hours with the Zentari apologizing and requesting to join the Concord themselves. The Sethian Commonwealth had tried to form their own rival alliance, the Coalition of Sovereign Systems, they called it. It lasted 8 months before every member quietly left to join the Concord instead. Being allied with the Sethians wasn't worth the risk of being opposed to humanity. Now the Sethians sat alone in their space, neither enemy nor ally, slowly realizing that they had isolated themselves by refusing to adapt. At the Concord headquarters, built on neutral ground in the system where the old Galactic Security Council had been, Marcus Chen walked the halls of power. He was the Concord Secretary General now. Not because he wanted the job, but because someone had to do it. He passed by delegates from dozens of species. They nodded to him with respect, some with genuine warmth, others with barely concealed fear. He could see it in their eyes. This is the human who ended the Krell. This is the species that wages war like a natural disaster. Let them fear, he thought. Better they fear us and behave than respect us and test our resolve. In his office, he found an unexpected visitor. An old Ysera, even more ancient than Clicking Song. This was Wave Singer, the fleet mother who had led the rescue at New Anchorage. She was nearly 80 years old by Ysera standards, her carapace pale and cracked with age. Fleet Mother, Marcus said, bowing slightly. This is an honor. I came to ask you a question, Wave Singer said. Her voice was weak, translated through speakers because her mandibles could barely move. Before I die, I need to understand. Ask anything. Why? She said. Not why you saved us. I understand debt, I understand honor, but why the war? Why the terror? Why make the galaxy fear you? Marcus sat down slowly. He had been asked this question 1,000 times. He had given 1,000 answers. But to this old alien who had saved his grandmother's life, he would give the truth. Because the galaxy needed to learn that kindness has consequences, he said. Not for those who give it, but for those who ignore it. Your people saved us because it was right. The galaxy should have saved you for the same reason. They didn't. They calculated, they weighed profits and losses. They decided you weren't worth the risk, he leaned forward. We terrified them so that the next time a species begs for help, the next time someone needs saving, the galaxy doesn't calculate. They just help? Because they've learned that the alternative is worse. Wave Singer's eyes reflected the office lights. You've made them help each other through fear. We've made them help each other, Marcus said. The reason doesn't matter as much as the result. In the 5 years since the war, do you know how many species have been wiped out by aggressive neighbors? 0. Do you know how many wars of conquest have been started? 0. Do you know how many small species have been ignored when they called for help? 0. Because they fear you. Because they've learned the lesson, Marcus corrected. Help each other. Stand together. Protect the weak. That's not fear. That's civilization. Wavesinger was quiet for a long time. Then her mandibles clicked in the Issera equivalent of a laugh. You've made the galaxy better by making them afraid of being worse. Yes, Marcus said simply. And you call yourselves the good ones? No, Marcus said. We call ourselves the humans. The ones who keep their promises. The ones who remember. Let the galaxy decide if that makes us good or not. Wavesinger stood slowly, her forelegs trembling with age. I'm dying, Ambassador Chun. My body is giving out. But before I die, I want you to know something. What's that? We're grateful. Not just for saving us, for changing the galaxy, for making it a place where what we did at New Anchorage means something. Where kindness isn't weakness. Where helping strangers isn't stupidity. Marcus felt his throat tighten. You're welcome, Fleet Mother. She left his office, moving slowly. Marcus watched her go, knowing he would probably never see her again. That night, he stood on the observation deck of Concord headquarters, looking out at the stars. Somewhere out there, the Krell were rebuilding under watchful human eyes. Somewhere out there, species were helping each other because they knew the alternative. Somewhere out there, his grandmother's grave on Earth held a small Issera crystal, a gift from Clicking Song, his communicator chimed. A message from Fleet Command. The newest human warship was ready for commissioning. They needed a name. Marcus thought for a moment, then sent his reply. Name her Wavesinger. In orbit above the Issera homeworld, the human dreadnought Remembrance maintained its eternal watch. It had been there for 5 years. It would be there for 50 more. A reminder, a promise. A threat? Humanity doesn't forget a favor? And God help anyone who makes them remember a wrong dot in the rebuilt Issera cities? Children played in parks designed by both species. In Concord space, ships from 100 worlds traded freely, protected by mutual defense pacts. In the former Krell systems, a new generation grew up learning about the cost of aggression. The galaxy had changed, not because humanity was good. Not because humanity was kind, but because humanity was honest. They said they would come if the Issera needed them. They came. They said they would repay the debt. They did. They said the galaxy would remember this lesson. It would in the human military. Academy on Mars. New recruits stood before a memorial wall. On it were the names of every human who had died in the 37-day war. 5,000 names. 5,000 lives spent to save a species most humans had never met. The oath they swore was simple. We are the memory of humanity. We repay our debts, all of them. We protect those who protected us. And we ensure that those who prey on the weak learn fear before they learn oblivion. The galaxy had learned humanity keeps its promises, every single one.